Yeah, so as he was saying, I've been doing bonsai about 18 years, and been teaching since about 2012. I tend to focus not just on tropicals, but I think nowadays my focus in teaching is more on breaking things down for people that maybe argue that they are not creative. I hear a lot of people say they're not creative in bonsai, that they'll never get it, and I actually love that challenge. So what I really pride myself on is kind of breaking this down into easy to digest steps that anybody should be able to have success with. So today we're going to be talking a little bit. We had a juniper that's coming. I don't know if it still is. They are coming. Okay. So we do have 2 junipers coming. But in the meantime, what we do have to talk about is a group planting. So we have a cedar elm that's got multiple trunks, and that gives us an opportunity to discuss forest planting designs or group planting designs. Who in here knows the kind of classic way of styling a forest? Oh, that's awesome. Who in here knows the classic way of styling a cascade bonsai? All right, so there's very few. This is what I really love to kind of travel and talk about is you don't have to follow all these rules in bonsai to have success, but I would say that you're a lot more likely to have you're a lot more likely to find use in material that otherwise you might not if you have a large palette of styles to choose from, a large understanding of the art. And what I found is I still feel I'm very creative now, and I've spent a lot of years really adhering to the tradition, and now I feel like I'm at the point where I have earned that right to really explore as much as I want, if that makes sense. So I like to tell people, imagine if we were in a music class and you guys have never played a musical instrument in your life, and I gave you all instruments tonight. What are the odds that anybody's going to make something musical? It's not going to sound great in here. So the same thing is true with bonsai, is we do need to have some kind of basics. A lot of this stuff will go out the window as you get more and more mature in your pursuit of bonsai. So what are some of the group planting parameters? Number 1 is we find our number 1 tree. And that's going to have a little bullet point. What is the number 1 tree? The number 1 tree is going to be the tallest or the fattest, and then should be the tallest tree. So it'll be the fattest and tallest tree. So that's going to set up everything else. Fattest and tallest. Because everything else from that point, we're going to cut to be shorter. Basically, the number 1 tree will be the fattest and the tallest. The next number 2 tree will be the second fattest, second tallest. Number 3 tree, so on and so forth. And so the number 1 sets the proportion for everything else. Wherever I decide to cut on my number 1 tree, which you guys can see, there's a dominant trunk in here, right here. That's our number 1. Whatever height I decide to set that at, sets all the other trunks. And why we do that is that it's a genealogy thing. Most forests, we have 2 types of forests. And most of the forests that we're going to grow are going to be near view forests, meaning we're going to be walking in the forest with the trees themselves. So you're going to see a number 1 tree. Okay. Then you might see a number 2. Then you might, in behind these, have a smaller tree for depth. And off to the sides, you might also have a number 4 tree and a number 5 tree. Over here, we might also. So small trees go to the sides and back, and we start making depth to the design. So can you guys start to see how that works? That's a very basic forest. We can extrapolate on this. What if I have another number 1 tree? I can break this into 2 groups where I have 2 number 1 trees in 2 separate groups. Let's say I have one that's a little taller than this, so my number 2 tree becomes a number 1 for this group, and I start repeating the same pattern over here. You can actually extend that theory up to 3, I think it is. So you're trying to create depth to the design with the other trees. But not only that, when we're doing forest plantings, there's also height to the design. So these sit on mounds. The biggest tree should sit the tallest. That has the biggest root mass underneath it. So it should sit the highest and the tallest, and so on and so forth. So when we're shaping our forest, or when we're designing the mound, we should, in a tray, we should be mounding it up towards the number one tree. And you should have these little mounds indentations in between the trees. Peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. So, so that's the general idea. And the other thing with group plantings that I want to point out, even if we just have a 1 and 2 tree, let's go 2 tree planting. Come on, there we go. Anytime you have multiple trunks, you are breaking it down into the rule of threes. Those of you who have seen me give lectures before know what the rule of threes is. Those of you who haven't, I'm going to give you a quick overview. So our cookie cutter way of building a bonsai that's been around since the John Naka days has been this rule of threes kind of recipe that we follow. So all the trees we're going to design are going to be broken into 1 part, 2 parts, and 3 parts. And number 3, the lower third, is not going to have any branches, no branches. That's just for Nabari, so that we see that flaring surface roots, and we don't obscure any of that. So typically we would not have branches for the first third of the design. The middle third is going to have left branches, right branches, and back branches, nothing to the front. Why would you have a front if you're going to cover it up? So we'll have left branch, right branch, and then a back branch here that's peeking out. And then to the top is where branches now grow 360. We have branches coming towards the observer, to the sides, and to the back. You'll make like a dense little hat at the top of the tree that obscures the trunk. Now that's the classic rule of threes design. And you'll see that in a lot of trees, in books, things like that, especially older trees. And you will, again, get away from this as you mature in your bonsai pursuit. But why this is helpful is that then if I have a twin trunk here, I can tell you, okay, you need to make 2 rule of threes trees. This one needs to have a left branch, right branch, back branch, and a top. And this one needs to be broken into its own third and have a right branch, left branch, back branch, and a top. So you see how you're breaking them up into the same thing. So it's a triangle that is broken up into several smaller triangles. Does that make sense to everybody? And so whenever you have multiple trunks, if I have 5 trunks, it should be 5 individual trees that I'm making. The only time where it doesn't matter, where we don't pay any attention and we just prune it into a big ball, is if you have so many trunks that the eye cannot tell individualism. So if you have 50 trees in this pot, is your eye going to be able to pick up any character of any one? No. So you're pruning that into a big ball. And what that's called is a far view forest. So the one we drew before is a near view. A near view is a forest where we are in the forest. We see the number 1 tree, we see the number 2 tree, we see the details of the trees. You're in it. A far view is, imagine you're driving your car and you see off in the distance the big mound of trees. And so you don't see individual character to the trees, you just see a lot of trees and a big mound of foliage. And so that's a far view forest. And we use that when we have a lot of like immature whips. Let's say you have 100 maple seedlings and you're like, what do I do with these? You make a 100-tree forest. And so the other difference between the two is that on a near view forest, you have to have odd number trees. On a far view forest, nobody cares because there's so many trees, nobody's going to count them out. And if they do, they're crazy. So real quick, let's kind of go through this forest planning because we got quite a few trees to talk about now. You guys tricked me. I was lulled into a false sense of relaxation. I said, I got plenty of time. No. So the first thing is setting the height of the number 1 tree. This really won't take that long because we're just going to kind of prune heights. But I would basically come in, I'm not going to let that tree be any taller than that. And even if they're fused at the base, that doesn't matter. It's still based on now my number 2 tree is over here. That needs to be my second tallest, so I'm going to come into here. Let me keep this pruned tight. Number 3 tree would be probably this one over here, this whole mass. And so I'm going to keep that even lower. And this guy really low. And this is a little, well, we got this guy to the back. Hang on. Okay, and then this guy, this little stick, unfortunately, he has to go under everything, so we have to kind of deadhead him right about there. And he should sprout. He's got 1 branch left on him, and that's basically how you would start building the forest. Then I would look and I would process these branches that are left on the tree, and I would say, okay, I need a left branch, but I've got 3 coming to this one side. Let me eliminate down to 1. Let me come to the other side. And make sure that I've only got 1, which I do. So now I've got a left branch, a right branch. I come again and I've got 2 of these on the left side, so I eliminate that. 2 of these on the right side, eliminate down to 1. Jeez. Okay. And now I'm staggered all the way up the tree until I get to this point. So it's the same thing. I'm working on it like I would any individual tree. Okay. And I'll make 1 cut with the concave and we'll be done with this guy. There we go. Okay. So now I would plant this in obviously a much smaller tray. This would be in a pot probably this wide. If I had this at my house, I would put it in a pot this wide and about that deep. So a very small tray, or you put it on a slab. But I think the front would be somewhere in here, so everybody can kind of see that, where we would see the number 1 tree kind of descend down to the number 2, and then descend on down to the number 3, 4, and 5. Any questions on forest or group planning?
What about the angles of the trees?
You can adjust that with wire, but if they're fused at the base like these ones are, that's like all you can do, because you can't reposition them if they're fused at the base. So think clumps and dual trunks, triple trunks, things like that. You're not going to have a lot of say other than being able to wire them wherever you need to put them. But if they're free trunks, they're trunks that you've planted individually, then you should move them to the correct orientation. And you can do that on either the first potting, or if you're not happy with the potting, you can always cut them out like pizza slices and move them to other parts of the forest. So once you do the first really, really irritating planting on a forest, it's a lot easier after that. So the first planting is a nightmare. And I actually quit teaching forest classes at Weigert's for a long time. One of the first classes I ever taught out there was a forest class. And I had 3 other classes before that I taught, and they went great. And then I taught this forest class, and it went horrible. And I told Eric, I'm like, never again. And it was like 8 years before I finally did it again. And yeah, so the first planting is usually very, very tough. But what happens is the second planting is the whole thing comes out as a mass. It's like a big, this would just come out as 1 tree. And so if you needed to adjust some of the individual trees, you'll cut them out like wedges. So you'll like cut in a wedge and pull that sliver out and put it into another part. Does that make sense? So
in a shallow pot, if you're supposed to have it mounded, what do you use to mount it?
So traditionally muck, like there's a Japanese term called muck, and every growing environment has their own recipe for muck. In Florida, we just use sphagnum moss and a high peat concentrate organic, and we kind of combine them 50-50 with water, and it makes like a organic paste almost, and you use that to kind of make like a dome. The Japanese use I think lake loam. There's a whole recipe for theirs, but it's very sticky, and so you can use it to kind of create a living kind of shield at the top that then you can plant moss and other things on, so you can really get elaborate with the planting.
So what does that do to the amount of organic matter in a shallow pot and then get water on?
Well, that's a great question. You have a lot of trees feeding from the water source, so it's different horticulture than a single tree in that pot. Another thing is when you're on a tray, I'm glad you brought that up. When you're on a true tray and you have no sides whatsoever, you are now no longer relying on transpiration as much as you are relying on evaporation. So you would think in a typical bonsai pot, I like to ask this question: how does the water get out of this bonsai pot? How does it get out of there? The bottom. Okay, so what about what's left in there after it all? After what drains out, how does what's left in there get out of the pot? The trees transpiring and evaporation. I'd say in a pot like this that's covered on most of the sides, I would say it's 90% transpiration. And I can tell that because when I defoliate a tree, I can water it and it will sit for 3 or 4 days wet before that water ever dries out. Whereas if I leave leaves on it and it's a very dense tree, it's almost daily that it dries out. So what I'm getting at is when you go to a true tray, you are now finally truly using evaporation more so. A lot of these trays don't even have drain holes because they're not relying on that. It has nothing to do with drainage. There's so much evaporation, you have no walls containing it anymore. So now you have transpiration plus evaporation, so they dry out very quick. So true trays, you want as much of that organic, that water retention as you can get.
So does a tray make the tree develop slower?
It can. So these are good questions. What really would do it is the watering. So depending on how much water, the more you water a tree, or any plant really, is the slower it's going to grow. So the more you give it water, think of it like this. If it has everything it needs, why would it grow? If it's getting water constantly, if we give it, let's say I water this tree twice a day, why would the roots go any further than where they're at? The only time they seek out and they go any further is when they have to. So when they start to dry out, when this pot starts to get dry about that far, those roots are going to go, uh-oh, and they're going to have a choice. They either seek moisture deeper in the pot or they die. And so that's when the roots finally start moving. We actually use this theory in bonsai all the time. And who in here has heard the term development and refinement? Few people. Okay. You'll hear this all the time in bonsai that, oh, this tree's in development. Or you'll hear people say, my tree's in refinement. And what that means traditionally in Japan is that you are working on the big moves in development. You are trying to grow the tree fast. You want coarse growth. You want to get the job done as fast as possible. And then in refinement would be when you start keeping it wetter, you start looking for small leaves, you start looking for density, you start looking for the finer details. And so a lot of times it is most efficient in bonsai to have a clear development period and a clear refinement period. A lot of us when we're beginners, we want to just jump into, I want to put it in a bonsai pot right away, and you'll get nowhere. You get nowhere that way. So at least not in most scenarios. So it's a good idea to have a good development. Like this for the forest planting, if I wanted to develop this forest, it's not bad planting, it's over potted, but that may actually benefit us for building the design, and then we put it in a small pot and slow it all down. Think of it like refinement is once you've done all the work and you're like, I don't want this thing changing, that's when you refine it and you slow it down and you will never really see big changes again. So that's kind of the gist of our training, but great questions. Great questions. Any other?
I have
Oh, he's heavy.
cypress that I was thinking of using in the forest, and yet they have to stay a lot wetter than those things.
Well, I would.
Bad idea?
No, we use cypress forests all the time. You could do a number of different things. You could change your medium to a more water retaining medium, like akadama, have akadama in it. Some people use organic. I don't love that. But the reality is we treat our cypress pretty much like we treat buttonwoods or any other. We don't treat them very special in the nursery at home. So yes, they like a little more water than others, but you know what they really like? Well-draining soil, lots of oxygen in the roots. They still like that wet-dry cycle to some degree. So we've still found a lot of success with growing. Eric hates anything but his coarse mix. He will try to grow everything in his coarse mix, cypress or whatever, and it doesn't have any water-retaining elements. It's lava expanded shale, and pumice. And he grows everything in it. And so everything, every style of bonsai, everything. And so it's largely going to be how you water and what you're willing to tolerate. Like the coarser you go, the more you're going to be watering, to keep the tree happy and healthy. So you could add.
Isn't that true that Florida has a lot more rain than we do here?
I don't know. I haven't looked that up. But it doesn't matter because I'll tell you, like, Japan has twice as much rain as Florida. So it's like people always tell me the argument, this is an argument I always hear, is we can't use our akadama in Florida. I hear that all the time. And they'll say, oh, we're so wet, we're too wet in Florida to use akadama. I'm like, well, then how do they use it in Japan? They're literally twice as wet. I've looked up the data. They get 80 inches of rain, we get 50. So not twice, but 2/3 as wet. So the akadama is not the issue. It's going to be the how do we use it as a tool. The akadama is not good. Like, I wouldn't take this tree and pot it in a pot this big full of akadama. Akadama is a refinement amendment. It's an amendment you put in when you are in this deep of a pot, and the thing is like using water like crazy. That's a good time to use akadama. But if I'm trying to develop the tree, think akadama is going to keep it wetter, what we just said, that's not going to help. So let's shift gears just so we can kind of make sure we're not losing too much time. Now we're talking about junipers. Who in here has junipers? Who in here is scared of junipers? Okay. Junipers are very scary at first, but I will promise you this, is when you go up north, they almost joke at how easy junipers are. This is their beginner tree. This is the beginner tree when you go up north, and like if we were in Japan or whatnot, this is going to be some of the beginner material you're going to get is junipers. And why they do that is they're tough. They're really tough. So yes, a lot of people lose junipers, but I think once you understand them a little bit, you'll realize they're pretty tough. Like I can tell you almost for sure, I could break all these branches 80% in half, like more than in half, and they would probably all survive. That's tough. That's a pretty tough tree. I can tell you that I could probably wire this tree, strip it down to very minimal foliage, and repot it, and the tree will still survive. And I can tell you that's a pretty tough tree. Where people tend to run into issues is the horticulture of them. And even that's not that hard if you just listen to people who have done it before you. The biggest issue I've seen with junipers in Florida is people don't want to use akadama. They don't want to use it. And I don't know why. They're like, it turns into a mush. I know. Junipers love mush. I don't know why. I don't know the science behind it, but they love the clay. They love clay. And APL, what I was told a long time ago, I watched a Boone lecture, okay? I watched a Boone lecture, and I heard him say that junipers have a thing called pine bark toxicity. If you feed them with organics, you have organics in the soil long term, it will kill the tree. And I seriously thought that was BS for years. I'm like, no way. We grow junipers inorganic at the nursery. And so what I found through research is that it's nursery standard throughout the whole country, throughout probably the whole world, that you put things in a tall columnar black nursery can. How many of us have seen that? Well, who thought of that? Somebody thought that that's a good idea. And then you put it with that black-brown organic soil that's always composted pine or fir bark. And so companies have done a lot of research into how do you grow plants the fastest. And what they found was you use those columnar cans and you grow with composted pine or fir bark, and you will get the most release of nitrogen for up to 3 years. And then it turns into a toxic sludge for the roots. So it's not just junipers. It's just about everything will decline after about 3 years in composted pine or fir bark. And so why don't we see that happening? Why don't we see trees dying in nurseries all the time? Because what is the plan for a tree? If this was in a nursery, what would I do to this if I had this in the nursery for 3 years? Sell it. And what would those people do with it? Put it in a bigger pot. Or in the ground. Right. So they're always being introduced to new organic soil, or they're going in the ground. So it's not going to be a long-term issue. For bonsai, if you're going to repot the tree every 3 years, then it's not an issue. But junipers don't like being repotted every 3 years. So now we've hit a problem. We've hit a problem with the organic soil. We have a 3-year shelf life, and we can't repot the juniper every 3 years. So you've got to get rid of the organics out of the soil. That's a huge thing with junipers. Get rid of the organics. I know everybody's going to be like, we're too dry. We got to have it. Use the akadama. It's super water retaining. Just trust me. I didn't believe it either, but as soon as I started switching over to APL, like I was hesitant to do, I started having a lot more success with junipers.
Didn't you say that Eric just uses the coarse wire?
He doesn't grow junipers. He hates them. Hates them. So yeah, so he doesn't grow junipers. I love junipers. I think this is the bread and butter of bonsai. This is like wherever you go, anywhere in the world, people are going to be working on junipers. Anywhere, any climate. You go to Brazil, and I guarantee you'll still find people working on junipers. Japanese junipers, too. That's why I'm such a, yes?
When you say get it in akadama, you mean APL?
APL, yeah. Just making sure that it's in the inorganic. APL's, I gotta say, APL is not the fastest growing amendment. It's not the fastest growing mix, but I will say it's like the best average Joe mix. Like it is the best for the most plants. Right, it works well. It'll give you nice compacted growth. It might not be the fastest growth, but it'll be nice and it'll be pretty healthy, and you won't have that many issues. So I do like APL. I think that's been my favorite mix so far. And I've tried all the Japanese blends. I've used the coarse blends. I've used organic blends. I've used tons of stuff. And I'll tell you, I like the APL. So, okay. So now that we're through kind of the horticulture, let's talk about the workload on junipers. Anytime you're approaching a juniper, it's the same workload. You're going to do kind of a few different things in a row. You're going to work on the deadwood first, clean up your live veins in deadwood. You're going to then clean through the foliage and then wire it out. Okay? So the first thing I would do is look for where I'm going to create deadwood, because junipers should usually have deadwood, and look for what's going to be my live veins and what's going to be my deadwood. So I haven't really looked at this tree, so I'm going to take a second. Feel free to ask questions while I do this. Sorta. All right, we do have a little bit of deadwood. Now, what do I mean by clean the veins? What do I mean by clean the live veins? Is junipers, oh gosh, do I not have my brush? Does anybody have a wire brush? Dad nabbit. Does anybody have any kind of brush? No? How did I not grab that? Yeah. Damn. All right. Well, we're not going to be able to brush it so much. It might, actually, yeah. Do you have one? Yes, that might actually work pretty well. I'm going to just double check in my bag, make sure I didn't put it in here. But if you have a metal brush, that usually helps kind of get the bark clean. Because what we're trying to do is when we have a deadwood juniper, you want to polish the vein. You don't want the bark on a juniper typically. We're not trying to keep any of this bark. We're going to try to get rid of a lot of that, and we're going to try to expose the red bark underneath. And why we do that is we want the deadwood to be white and the live vein to be red. Now, why would we want that? Beautiful. It is beautiful. Contrast. There you go, contrast. For the novice, it's very hard to determine what is alive and what is dead on a juniper, especially once they've gone through a process called graying out. So everything will just turn a homogeneous gray. The deadwood will be gray, the vein will be gray, and if you don't know bonsai, you'll just be like, I don't see it. I don't see the interest. So the idea is red is live, white is dead, and you'll see these interplays. If you go to like a Japanese show or you see high-level junipers, you'll notice that they have this red vein that like undulates around the deadwood, and if it wasn't highlighted, you might miss a lot of that character. You know, it's not just sitting still. So usually we're going to come in here. I don't mind even just flaking it off with my hand, and then if I have the brush, I'll kind of brush it down to get it redder. But a lot of that free bark we're gonna try to get off of there. Oh, thank you, it's a brand new one too. I don't know if it'll help, but it's better than nothing. I can't believe I lost my brush. It's at your house, Richard. Richard, my brush is at... Okay, so we do need to create deadwood somewhere on the tree, and ideally it wouldn't just be wussy deadwood. We would need to create like a good piece of deadwood. So as I'm cleaning, I'm gonna be kind of assessing, where'd that brush go? There it is. What we can use for deadwood. Yeah, it's a little soft, but it works. I mean, it's getting some of that off of there. Okay. Yeah, see, it's getting some of that off of there. Okay. So the top of this tree is very weak. So I don't know that I'm going to use the whole top. I may end up just using a few of these to build with. I'm even considering maybe building this as the top. This is probably going to be deadwood, this long straight section. The other thing about junipers is you don't want to build too long. Like I doubt we're going to leave this branch out to here. Okay, we are probably going to bring it in to here and start building the foliage pads back. Less is more when you're doing initial styling on junipers. It's scary, but as long as you're kind of you're in the right soil and you're not overwatering them extremely hard, then usually they'll survive up to, I've taken them down to 10% foliage and I've had them recover. So I would usually say take them no more than 70% reduction. So leave 30%, that's probably a good, healthy kind of risk. Give you a good risk, keep you up at night for a few nights.
Can I ask a question about watering? Like,
Sure.
How do you guys water junipers? Is it like foliage? Is it?
Everything, everything. And different junipers like different things. Japanese junipers like it wetter. They're not like this like dry loving arid, like think where Japanese, is Japan known to be a desert? Is it known to be like an arid area? No, it's a wet area, it's super wet. So you gotta think those mountains, even if they're mountain trees, they're wet mountains. And so Japanese junipers, shimpakus, things like that, they like it a little wetter. Other trees, like I don't know where these guys grow, but I know that out in California, those Sierra junipers like it a little drier. I know Parsoni like it a little drier. So there's a lot of things that don't like it wet. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to break some stuff down. All right. I like that being deadwood though. This is a cool little piece up here. Now I would like to create some shari as well, but I don't know that we have, yeah we do, we got enough meat. So shari is the other part of juniper that I love. It's basically, well, I'll show you. It'll make more sense than me describing it while I'm trying to not cut my hand off. But what we're trying to do is cut deadwood into this live vein section that we can then start to create a ribbon-like cross-section to the tree. So I'll explain and I'll draw some figures up on the board. But let me show you first if I can get this off of there. Hang on, let me get one more tool. There we go. There we go. Sorry. I can hear everything. Okay. It looks like it's already dead actually, so it looks like I uncovered a shari more than created a shari, which isn't bad. But see how I'm kind of exposing this deadwood to the front, and we've got this vein that rides to the side. So in typical juniper theory, if this was a cutting, and we were growing this from cutting, we would take a juniper cutting, and we would twist it up in random directions, okay? Now how am I gonna draw that? That's pretty good. Okay, so that's our juniper, right? So we wire up a cutting, and you wait until it gets about thumb size thickness or so, and you're gonna wire a few different branches. You might have a few of these twisty guys coming off of here as well. And some of that stuff is gonna be destined to be deadwood, and some of that stuff is gonna be destined to be the trunk line. Now, once you get to about a thumb size thickness, you're gonna start creating shari in the tree. And there are rules to that shari. We didn't get very far on our rules in forests, but we'll try here. One is shari always starts to the front and back. To the front and back. So what I mean is we're going to come in here, we're going to cut a wound that comes and kind of follows the contour of the tree. Okay, like that. And you're going to do that several places on the tree. We're going to open up these like windows of deadwood. And whatever we do to the front of the tree here, we also need to do to the back. So we're doing front and back of the tree. Now, why would we always do it to the front and not to the sides? Is we're going to be creating a ribbon-like cross-section. So instead of the tree being a cylinder like this, once we take out the deficit, it's going to look more like this. It's going to be the cross-section. It's going to be like a ribbon, okay? So if we take this out to the sides, we'll be looking at the ribbon at the thinnest part, not the fattest part. So we have to do it to the front and the back if we're starting it out. Now, what happens to the shari after that is irrelevant. You can go to the sides and do whatever you want. But the shari flows around the trunk in various cool intertwining ways, and over the years, we will pick away at that. By this will heal up, each one of these will start to close, and we'll reopen it a little wider. And so what will happen over the years is we'll end up with these big, fat, ribbon-like flat junipers. That's called mezusui. And so some of this stuff, this will be our dead little gin. He's dead. And some of this may end up dead over time. You know, we may kill off some of that and make that into gin. The idea is you're making a living sculpture. A living sculpture. Does that kind of make sense how we're creating that ribbon-like cross-section? And every so many years, you're opening it back up. Sometimes more than every few years. Sometimes it's pretty frequent. So that's why I'm messing with this to the front, is trying to make sure we have good deadwood established on the tree. And it looked like I said, we already had some kind of hiding there. Yeah. Any questions so far while I'm just delicately trying to not hurt myself? Good.
No, but we're going to be wrestling off all three of these trees at the end of the day.
Okay.
That will take you about 5 hours, and this would be whoever draws first, they get to pick whatever tree they want. First, second, third.
Let's see if the toothbrush can get some of that.
Our house is Saturday. There you go. Come on, guys, raise your hand. All right, this Saturday.
It's actually working. Woo, that sounds really fun. I love margaritas. Okay.
There's also 2 workshops with Mike, so one starts from 9, I think, to 11:30, the other from 1:30 till 4. How about that? Those you need to sign up online at signup It's $50 per workshop, it's 3 hours, you can bring up to 2 trees.
The morning is already full. Right, there's already blocking up.
I signed up 3 times, I'm selling mine. But the afternoon is open, and that's when the alcohol will be going, so Mike will be in a really good mood
That's true.
for that workshop.
Usually, unless it's tequila. No, I like tequila. I'm pretty nice. Okay.
I drank tequila, I drank Benny Rogers.
Now, do I need this to the back? I do need that to the back. I don't need this. Okay, we do have wire. All right.
Oh, also, if you come out to the house and there are some pots or trees that you want to sell, bring them, there will not be a terror charge.
Actually, save that. We got one finer. Here we go.
And if you bring children, so if you got kids, they get feed goats, and they bring margaritas just like they got.
Wait, you're feeding the kids to the goats?
Giving them margaritas.
We have our numbers of goats.
Feeding them to the turtle.
So they would live around saltwater. Yeah, oh yeah.
Can you talk about pruning juniper?
Yes. So junipers basically, like if we're going to clean this out, there's going to be inert growth on a juniper. So this is probably a good example. So if I look at this tree, you'll see that at the tips of the juniper, that's where we have actual green new growth, new buds. The tips are everything in junipers. You never want to just prune across. You never want to just pinch every tip on the tree. You need to leave some of those active tips, and that's also a key to the health of the tree, is all of the brains of the juniper is in the tips of the foliage. That's why you can't defoliate a juniper. You can defoliate this. I can take all the leaves off, no problem, because all the auxin, the growth hormone, exists in the tissues of the plant and in the roots. And so wherever I cut this, there's still a remaining amount of auxin to push new buds and to recover the plant. If I take all the tips off of this, the tree is dead. So you can't defoliate these. You always have to basically cut to the last set of green. That's as far as you can go. The last set of green is as far as you can go on any given branch. So when I'm trying to prune these, aside from that, there's also kind of a code of notice that there's 2 different foliage types. There's a prickly type, and then there's this like softer, more scale-like foliage. That's mature and juvenile foliage. The juvenile foliage is the spiny, and the mature is this finer foliage out here. We want the finer foliage. We also want the foliage that's actively growing, and if it's not actively growing, like back here, we have these kind of juvenile shoots that have kind of crapped out. They're not extending anymore. They don't have an active tip at the end. Those are inert. Those are taking more energy that they're giving, and they need to come off the tree. And so I do this not all the time, but I do this maybe twice a year, where I'll go in and I'll thin it down to eat every part of the tree down to something like that, to where it's an active, healthy tuft of foliage. And then if I need to prune that, I can you'll get good at pinching, but you need to pinch between 2 active growth tips. So wherever I pinch, I need to leave 2 active tips that aren't affected by my pinch. And so you'll lower things by kind of pinching little by little, not just hedging without any thought. You can't do that. So that's kind of the theory with them, is you have to also get rid of that inert growth. If you don't get rid of that inert growth, they don't respond as well. They don't back bud as well. So I like to get rid of all those shoots that aren't turning into anything. And it also opens up the design and makes it look a lot cleaner. Good questions. And this is an Ashe Juniper, right? Yes.
Those were collected from Bernie area.
From where? Nice. When were they collected? Was that the question? That I don't know. When were they collected, Kevin? Oh. Usually with junipers, you definitely need to give them at least a year of recovery. But it's not even that. I shouldn't even put time limits like that, because the real answer is it should be based on how well the tree is growing. If the tree is kicking butt, then, and it looks like it's regained a lot of its previous health, then you can work on it whenever. Okay. Let's get this inert stuff out of there. Any other questions so far?
Can we hire you to come to our house and fix all our trees?
Oh, I'm happy to. Listen, I like San Antonio. I'll come back as often as I'm allowed. No, I was coming to San Antonio pretty regularly a few years ago, but you know, you travel. Can't get everywhere in 1 year, so unfortunately, I think I did come last year once, but I used to come a couple times a year. We're gonna fix that though.
You're not worried about having a real long interval between,
No, they backbud, and what's realistically gonna happen is you're gonna build with this long term. This is gonna be the future of the branch, or if something backbuds in here, you know? So this is just temporary for keeping health of the tree, keeping momentum.
All right, you asked about the trees. The one in the tub was collected in 2021.
Perfect.
The blue pot 2024. He always misses the foliage and fertilizes. That's all he does.
That's good.
You would have told yourself that you went home because Mike doesn't like these.
I like these. No, I like these. These are cool.
No, he'll be at the house Saturday.
Now, junipers are, like I said, they seem very scary at first, but they're not too bad. One of the biggest things to kind of keep in mind is that the recovery time is different. So they'll recover from just about the same torture that a tropical will or anything else, but you have to give them a longer period of time to recover. So whereas it might take 2 weeks for a tropical to recover from some pretty aggressive work, it might take 2 months for a juniper to recover from the same work. They love it. I don't know why. Junipers love it. Living in clay.
So the tropicals recover pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. Tropicals recover within 2 weeks usually. Unless there's like a setback, you know. We don't like setbacks. We don't talk about setbacks.
What do you consider setbacks in tropicals?
Like if something, let's say I repot a buttonwood and it doesn't come back right away, it sits and kind of fizzles, and then we get into winter, and now I've got a weak tree that I'm nursing through winter. You know, that's a setback.
What about bougainvilleas?
Setback would be if I get root rot on them and they start to like stay too wet, you know, start to rot the roots out, and they start noticing that on the canopy. That would be a setback. Yeah, APL is it's a good soil mix. I just like it, you know. I don't want to like it, but I like it.
I don't want to like it either because it's hard to get a hold of.
That's why, yeah. I like to not be relying on it. The thing is this, if you can find a similar clay amendment, by all means. But we've tried like Turfus, we've tried a lot of things, and not by we, I mean the community. And we've tried turfus. There's been a lot of people that have talked about expanded shale, and it works pretty good, but I don't know that anybody's found anything that truly replaces akadama yet, you know. And I don't know if people are willing to let go of that superstition. You know, I'm not. I'm still like very much like, ooh, akadama, that's safe. I don't know. Let's stay with that. So, yeah. They make it easy on you too. That's the other thing is, I was for a long time sifting soil and all that and like preparing my own blends. And then I had a child.
And what a child she is.
She is. She's awesome. She's very worth it. But yeah, no more sifting of soil. Actually, that'd probably be something she'd really enjoy. Yeah. Now that I think about it. Yeah. Oh, she loves anything like that. I tell her to water trees. I'm like, yeah, go water the trees. She loves it. Not those trees.
Some people use the soil fines to make the muck too.
Yep. And I don't love Florida muck. There was a type I used, I don't remember, in my travels that was like a Japanese recipe. And it was awesome. I mean, it was like super sticky. And I can't remember but it was like 5 different things they used to make it. And it was really good stuff, though. I should have wrote it down.
Well, just one, and it's like basically akadama vines and like peat moss.
That works good. Yeah, I mean, it's a game changer when you have good, it's going to sound silly, when you have good muck. It's a game changer. But the muck allows you to really like pot trees on anything. You know, it allows you to pot them inverted. You can like pot up things. You can pot seashells. You can pot anything as long as you have muck. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of preparing some of these for the pads. Unfortunately, junipers need, usually, to look good, they need a fair amount of wiring. You know, because you do want to prepare the pads. You want to prepare good, crisp pads, and you need everything, unless it's like a really dense shimpaku, you need everything relatively wired. Relatively everything wired. So I've got one more thing I've got to add on here, and then we'll play around a little bit, and I'll show you what I have in mind, and then I'll go back to the pain of wiring more. Okay. Oops. So I also like to use copper wire on junipers. There's a number of reasons why. Number one is you can use a way finer wire and not sacrifice strength. So I'm using a fine wire now, but it's not going to hold the shape for a year, which we're going to need it to really hold strong for like a year. And it's not going to do that because it's really fine aluminum. Copper of the same size will definitely do that and hold that shape for a long period of time. So it's like armor. Think of wire should be like armor that you put on. And on a tropical or on a broadleaf where it's going to stay on for a couple months, it's not a big deal. You know, aluminum is fine. But on something where you really need it to be armored for a year, then it needs to be strong. And so I usually use copper for junipers. It also blends in a lot better. Okay. And I want to build a pad. Let me come to the front. Everything is usually built like this. 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. And I'm making like a Japanese fan. So it should go 180 degrees is usually what I'm trying to make. And I can make that either one big pad or I can subdivide this pad. I could like bring this down and make one level, bring this down, make another level, and kind of subdivide this into multiple pads. I'm not going to leave it to the front like that, but just so you guys can see, is you see how I'm able to kind of manipulate these into several different foliage pads? So that's going to be kind of the key to junipers, is getting a lot of that stuff wired and then positioned into your pads. So let's see how we're going to get this guy down. We might need like a guy wire, or maybe we'll go up with this guy. Let me think. Yeah, we'll go up with this guy. I'm going to build a pad there. Build a long-term pad there. Okay. Okay. All right, so we're starting to build out a little tree here. Now, I did change and from going to a pad because I realized how far out I'm changing to a trunk, a little head of foliage that I'm making out here with one pad. So we're going to have one pad out here. Okay. That's going to be really important in future, though. Maybe we'll even go up a little further like that. So I may guy wire that up a little further once we get closer to the end. Let's get in here real quick. Now I don't know that I'll have time to detail wire everything like that, but I'm going to try to do at least one really good pad out up here. Let's see. Any questions so far? So great question. So junipers can take, if you're going to really do like a full wiring, think you're doing your year's worth of work in like a day or two, and then you're not going to touch it again. So it's a lot of work for the day or two you're going to work on it, and then it's like the easiest tree you're going to have in your whole garden. So you're doing your whole year's worth of work in like 1 or 2 days. So it's usually a lot of wiring, and a lot of, because you're doing the deadwood, you're doing the clean out, you're brushing the trunk. It's a very in-depth project. But for me, it almost makes other trees seem boring. I'm like, wait, what do you mean you just wire the branches? What do you mean that's it? You just wire the branches and that's prune it a little bit? Junipers, you're pruning it, you're shaping deadwood, you're doing shari, you're cleaning the live vein. There's so many little chores to do that I like. Outside. Yeah, definitely. Most bonsai are going to do best outside. Think like the reason we tend to think of them as indoor trees is that the Japanese display them indoors, and all the pictures we see are them indoors, but they're not grown indoors typically. Okay. This branch is annoying. Go over here. Maybe I can get, yeah, there we go. Get him out of the way. What's that? Nice. Yeah. It's a pretty cool tree. I do like this tree quite a bit. This is junipers also come in a variety of different foliages, like the quality of the foliage. A lot of them are very lazy and they hang down and they're not very fun to work with. This is actually turning out to be a very fun foliage to work with. It's pretty tight, it's pretty dense, and I'm liking it. This is, I think, my first Ashe Juniper I've really worked on. What's that?
This one's very loose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one doesn't look as fun. But that's the thing. That's any collected tree. We find the same thing with buttonwoods is, you know, when we collect them, is some are very easy to work with as bonsai and some are very difficult to work with as bonsai.
Can you still collect the buttonwood?
No. No, but you'll, even just seeing them in nature, if you just look like at what's interesting, you'll see a big difference. You'll see a big difference in like how tight they'll grow. I have probably 3 or 4 buttonwoods, and one is very, very easy to make dents. And it's like I forget what they call it, the red petiole one. And it's just a way easier foliage to work with than the other ones I have.
They're closely related to mangroves, aren't they?
So they say. Some people were saying for a long time that they are a type of mangrove, but I don't think they are. I think they kind
I
of.
was driving down the road from my house.
No.
They look a lot. I almost went off the road.
Yeah, they're awesome. But they don't like it as wet as a mangrove. Richard's right. Is like the way we used to find them when we did used to collect them was we would always have to find an Australian pine first. We'd be in a kayak and you'd see if the island we were looking at did not have an Australian pine, then we knew there wasn't enough dry land to grow buttonwoods. And we would just never find them there. If it was all water, they would not grow in it. So they had to have some dry land to grow on. The only plant I've really seen that loves growing in water all the time is mangroves, like the red mangrove. Even cypress like to have a period where they're drying out. And what I like to say is like the ones in the swamp that are always wet, compare the look of those, compare the health of those to like one in somebody's yard that's in a well-draining spot. You'll see like a Christmas tree on the bald cypress. I mean, it will literally grow perfect. And then the ones in the swamp are like, help me, help me. So I don't know that I just have my opinions on that. I do like well-draining soil for most things, and I think most things like it too. But even those little procumbens junipers are a lot of fun. And those are like unkillable. Those things are tough. Once you figure out not to take all the tips off and stuff like that. But they're a tough tree. I've pruned those procumbens back pretty hard, and they keep coming back like a tropical. Shocked. Okay. Any other questions so far?
What do you do to encourage backbudding?
So that's getting rid of the inert shoots. So those shoots, where'd that question come from? Oh, right here. So getting rid of those inert shoots, opening up, it's going to sound counterintuitive, opening up the branch, getting rid of a lot of the stuff that's back here. So like if you have shoots in here that are inert and they're not pushing buds, they're those carbon sinks. They're those things that are taking more energy than they're giving to the tree. And so when you actually do a juniper clean out and you get rid of all that stuff and you end up pushing a lot of that towards the tips, it'll start backbudding like crazy from the crotches. So that's the thing. A lot of times once the tree gets this leggy on a juniper, you'll have to start growing from the crotches the following year and rebuild the tree. So every so many years on a juniper, you'll have to basically rely on this crotch growth that comes out, but here's the caveat, is it's going to come out 5 times faster than anything else on the tree. And it's going to be way denser than anything else on the tree. And so instead of relying on like backbudding in the traditional sense, you're going to year after year kind of work the branches further and further out. They're going to get leggier and leggier. And then at some point you're going to work on this, getting this crotch growth. It's going to grow super fast. And in 1 year, you're going to trade out those branches for the new vigorous, dense growth. And so you're going to start the process over again. And you're slowly working that out year after year. Every time you style it, working it towards the tips, and then it starts working further and further out. Because think aesthetically, we don't build a juniper pad. Like when I go down here, if I'm building my juniper pad like this, I don't have foliage right here, typically. It's not like that. It would be a branch that comes down, divides, and then you build out that pad. So you see more structure. You're seeing a lot more structure. The way I was always told to think of a pad is hands holding up a dinner tray of foliage. So like the best way to kind of think of it is I would have my pad come down, and then I would have my, in theory, 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 coming out like this. And then these would come up like this. And then upon that would sit my mound of foliage. And so that's kind of the theory of a pad. So you don't have a lot of foliage on the structure of the branches themselves. It is going to be towards the tips a lot of times on junipers when you're styling them. The only times you're really worrying about that true back budding is out on the tips. You'll get plenty of it. And then when you need to rebuild the tree, like this is not how we wouldn't rebuild the whole primary, but hypothetically, you would get a bud in here, and then in a year, this is going to run out and be so dense that you're going to be like, why don't I just cut this off and go into that? And it'll look very obvious. Does that make sense? So it pushes that crotch growth very fast. What is it?
The phone was ringing, I couldn't hear what you said.
I don't know what you heard, where I left off.
What very often, or something.
It'll look obvious.
It'll look obvious. So when that shoots out, it'll look like you should probably cut into that. It'll look a lot denser than the rest of the tree around it. And so it's just the rebuild. But that's every like 3-4 years usually on a juniper that you really have to start considering rebuilding the tree in that regards. In that regard. Okay. Good questions, though. Also, I remove the undersides. I'm always pulling off the undersides of these little tufts. If it's not going to sit, if that's going to sit on a plane, it's going to sit flat, then it shouldn't have undersides. So I'll be continually policing that as I work through the rest of this design. Okay.
What do you use for fertilizer?
I do use organic, but I typically also feed with a NutriCoat, like a time-release NutriCoat fertilizer, and that is a twice a year.
For all your plants? Or?
Yeah, it's a really easy fertilizer to use, and so, no, NutriCoat, yeah.
Twice a year, like spring and fall?
Spring and fall.
And no other supplement with fertilizer?
I use BioGold. I do use BioGold a lot.
In baskets?
In baskets, yep. Okay. All right, now let's get this down. That's good. Yeah, it is expensive, but it's twice a year. You use it twice a year and you're done. Okay. All right, let's get some thick wire on that. But I really like working, my favorite is the Shimpaku junipers. I love working on Shimpaku junipers. They grow really easy from cutting. They're a pretty easy tree, I think, to take care of. Yeah.
So do you get a lot of salt air,
Yep.
wires?
Yeah, I mean, not at Weigerts. We don't grow a lot of junipers at Weigerts, but I get a lot of salt there at my house.
Do you?
Yeah.
What parts per thousand right now?
What's that?
You don't know how many parts per thousand?
I don't.
Because junipers just don't like it at my house. It's a hypersaline lagoon adjacent to my house.
It's true.
The salinity
Now, they do grow towards the coast. Well, the Shimpakus, some varieties do grow near the coast in Japan. So they're, and I haven't had any issue with the Japanese ones. Now, I don't grow every juniper. You know, I've never grown one of these. I've never grown a Rocky Mountain or a one seed or anything like that. But the Japanese junipers seem to do okay. I like Itoigawa. Yeah, it's just finer, and it grows like, Kishu looks like a poodle. Like a poodle. Yep, it gets pom-poms very easy. And it's like it's not as fine, and it's also like a bluer color. Like you get this really nice like emerald green with the Itoigawa. So I tend to like it better. But one, I think, I don't know, I honestly don't know if this is accurate or not, but I'm pretty sure one is a crawling juniper or a creeping juniper, and one is a running juniper. Like there's apparently a big difference. And from what I've seen with the Itoigawas, they'll put a lot of runners out. And the Kishu, they will do it too, but not nearly as frequently as the Itoigawa. Like they'll sit in these little balls for a long period of time and maybe occasionally throw out a runner, whereas the Itoigawa is like runners everywhere. So they seem to creep. I always repot junipers beginning of spring. And I shouldn't say always, because I repotted them any time of year. But the different root work is done in spring. So if I've put them in different pots, I've slip potted them any time of year. I've lightly messed with roots, you know, to get them in the pot I want any time of year. But root work, I've seen best results in spring. More than 4 years. Like they're not a tree that really loves being repotted. So think if you don't have to repot them, don't repot them. Yeah.
When you do repot them, how much of the roots do you put on?
I've been pretty aggressive. So I've gone, like in this scenario, if I was reducing this tree, I wouldn't be opposed to reduce probably down to a basketball. You know, I'd take a lot of roots off. So, but I'm always balancing. I always think of it as a ratio of what you're leaving on the tree and what you're taking away on the roots, and that's always worked pretty well for me. So it would scale down if I left this massive. I might leave more, you know. But
the aftercare, you just put it in shade for a couple of months.
Put it in the shade for about a month usually. I put it in. If it responds well, you know, and it doesn't miss a beat, then you can put it out in the sun after a couple weeks. But usually a month I give it, just because they are slower to kind of respond.
Would that be the same for deciduous?
No, deciduous I usually go in 2 weeks. 2 weeks I put out in the sun.
Do you bear them?
I don't. Oh, great question. Okay, so glad you asked that. You never bare root fully in one sitting a juniper, or a conifer really, other than a cypress. So you will never take all the soil out of this. If I broke this down to a basketball, I would be done with the repotting. I would just pot that basketball in a bigger pot with soil around it. And I would not go deeper than that. So I never bare root them all in one sitting. I'll slowly, like if I have to leave organic in the core, then I will plan on maybe in 2 years going in and getting the rest of it, or in 2 years going in and getting more of it. You know, I'll make a plan for it. But I definitely don't take it all out at once, because then it will definitely, more than likely, kill the tree.
You would do it like quarter, I guess?
What is it?
Quarter? Like a pie?
You know, I've honestly done it in percentages, and I know everybody I think Boone talks about doing like half the root ball, et cetera, et cetera. I've always done like the same kind of theory, but when I say half, I mean like half. Not like do this half and leave this half. I would say bring in the volume by a half. So that would be more my way of doing it. And so I kind of agree with that approach, is take off about half or 2/3, go down about 2/3.
But the organic soil then stays on in the
Yep.
middle.
It does, and that's gonna be a problem if you don't dig it out in the next coming years. So you've got like a 3-year time limit. You know, it's like ticking away. And it's not going to kill. It's not like in 3 years the tree's going to go and just die. But you'll start noticing after year 2 of it being in organic soil, you're going to notice it doesn't grow as good. And you're going to say, huh, that's weird. It grew so good year 1. Why is it not growing as good? And then year 3, you're going to be like, wow, this is really hard to water. It's very dense in this root ball, and it's very, very hard to get water to penetrate it. And you're just going to notice this decline in health that's slow. And then after that 3-year cycle, you'll start seeing it kind of slowly decline. Slowly decline. And that's something I've seen with every plant, every single thing. We have sea hibiscus. Those who know me, I grow a lot of sea hibiscus. They're like after year 2, you've basically like expended any of the explosive growth they're going to have, unless you up pot them or put more organic in there.
Those things can take a beating.
They can. They can. They're one of my favorites for that reason. I'm going to double up on that.
Grafting workshop one time. And
Yeah.
that poor thing has been so abused, and it's just popping left and right.
Good. That's what I like to hear. I don't want to hear that they're living cushy lives.
Oh, no.
I don't like that.
Not in my house.
These trees need character.
Yeah.
I was telling Richard earlier, I was like, it's like you got to look at the tree's hands and be like, you haven't worked a day in your life, you know? Yeah, you soft. Lived a soft life. Lived a soft life. So yeah, we do. We want trees with character. We don't want boring trees. I was also telling Richard, I don't want to listen to somebody who has lived a boring life tell me their boring life story. I want if nothing has ever happened to you, it's going to be a boring story, right? If you've never had any kind of adversity. So it's the same with trees. I don't want to look at a tree that's lived the best life ever. It's going to probably be boring. So you've got to beat them up. The hibiscus are a great example. Is the more you're kind of cutting them and healing them and cutting them and healing them, the better they're going to look. All right. Now we can lower some. I do any style. I mean, not any style. Usually informal upright, slanting, semi-cascades, things like that. I don't typically do like windswept or bunjin with them. But like the 5 primaries I'm happy to do with them.
It takes forever to reduce the leaves on them.
It can. Okay. I'm not going to detail wire everything because I do want to get to that other tree. So I'm just going to do like a rough kind of shaping here. All right, let's see. Can I get into that jump right there? All right. I think I need that. There we go. I would like that to be up more. No, I guess that'll be fine. All right. Okay, so let me just real quick, I'm going to jump over and look at this tree real quick. I'm hoping I have some time to jump over and finish some detail wiring on here, but this is going to be the general kind of shape is whenever you're dealing with material, and this is actually a really good kind of point to make, is whenever you're dealing with material, you always have the choice of interpreting it as a branch or a trunk. You always have that choice. This can be a branch or it can be a trunk. This can be a branch or it can be a trunk. This could be a branch or I can make it a trunk. Now what changes about that interpretation is what rules you're going to apply to the tree. So if I want something to be a branch, then I apply pad rules to it. Meaning if I want it to be a branch, it needs to go somewhat horizontal, and then anything growing up from the pad needs to be stubbed and controlled and not allowed to grow up too tall. I want to make sure I have a nice level pad. So we're going to kind of prune that in, remove from the bottoms anything growing from the bottom, like that. Okay. And anything growing to the sides, if you have time, and you will wire it, and that will position our pad. Okay, that's branch theory. Now, that's not always going to be easy to apply to things that are up and out like this. If you can't get them horizontal, it's going to be hard to apply that. Or maybe you have a branch that's super low, and you say, well, it's not going to work as a branch. Maybe I can use it as a trunk. So the trunk theory switches in that every time, just like we said over here, is if you decide to interpret it as a trunk, let me just make sure that's dry erase and not permanent. Okay. If you have a, let me see, just lost my train of thought. Were we just? Trunk, gotcha, sorry, okay. So if we're over here and we have our trunk coming up into this design, this is one that now, we're not going to treat this as a branch. It's too low to be a branch, but it can be treated in the rule of threes. And even if I have a branch up here, let's say I have a branch up here and I say, well, I don't like it as a pad, can I treat it as a trunk? You absolutely can. You break it into threes and you say bare for the first third, right, left, back, and a dense top. And you can make that design anywhere on the tree. So sometimes it's going to be better. If I have big leggy branches on the juniper, it might not be possible to shape them into cohesive pads. But I might be able to work them into little triangles that I can start making my little triangle here, maybe with one little auxiliary pad, big triangle up here, little triangle over here, and start making them into multi-trunks. Does that make sense? So I'm going much more with a multi-trunk design rather than a bunch of pads. And that's mostly because we're not going to be able to get these down in a horizontal plane. Even if we did, we would just open up more gaps. If I put this horizontal, we would just have a big open gap here that we would have to fill with something else. So it's only going to work as as trunks in this particular design.
But like you really would do one that high up?
Absolutely. Why not? Why not? You can.
This species in particular, or
Any. I don't mind. This is where you start getting creative. This is where you're getting away from cookie cutter design. You know, and it's true. What if the tree, how many of us have seen trees that maybe got broken off in the center there, and then they shoot off two apexes? You know, that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon for that to happen. Throw in a low trunk down here. Oh my gosh, now he's crazy. He's going nuts. So we can just keep adding them in. You can take any of those rule of threes positions, left, right, and back, and you can make them into trunks. You know? It can always be interpreted as either trunks or branches. And the only thing that changes is like the laws that are kind of governing it. Is it going to be rule of threes or is it going to be the pad theory? Oh, man. That's a lot. Okay.
Generally, you would want a trunk tree or a pad tree, right?
You would want...
You don't want to mix up trunks and pads.
Right, yeah, exactly. Well, that's not true. No, that's not true. Sometimes you will have some pads. I don't want to say that it's not always pigeonholed that frequently. You can, like this one's going to have some, like this is going to be a pad on this side, but it's going to be a pad connected to this trunk. So there won't be any primary pads. Maybe that's a good way to think of it. No primary pads coming off the trunk, the main trunk. So, but I'd have to think about that. I'd have to think about the logic behind that and whether that's true. Okay, so we got another juniper, another ash juniper, correct? This one came from the same person? Yes. Okay, so same sort of theory applies. As we were talking about before, group planting. We're doing a lot of group plantings tonight, a lot of multi-trunks. So we're going to be doing the same sort of thing. Obviously, I'm not going to have a ton of time to wire everything, but let's see what we can do. So we want to bring the number one tree. The number one tree is awfully isolated, and what I might even do for the composition is he's so different from the rest of the character of the tree, I might say, do we have a white blanket or anything? Do we have anything that I could cover a tree with? Foil, a yellow towel? Oh, what about this blue towel? Can I borrow the blue towel? Yes. All right. Blue towel is being borrowed. Just FYI, blue towel is being borrowed. All right, so I personally would not use this tree in this composition as is. As is. So meaning like you could repot it and you could pot this closer to these guys, but there is no way realistically that I can see where we're going to tie these into a cohesive design with them being that far apart. So it's going to be, if it was a do or die, you've got to do it tonight, it would be that. That's what we're going to be working with, is a twin trunk or a multi-trunk like that. I like it a lot better. So that's going to be kind of what we're working with. Everything flows in the same direction as well. We've got like a harmony to it. Yeah, I like that quite a bit, actually. Let's get rid of that guy. That guy's good. Now, whenever you're dealing with collected trees, you don't have the luxury of saying where things necessarily emerge from. You're not like, you weren't there when the trees started as a cutting, so you don't have a choice on whether everything comes out of curves or whatnot. To some degree, you do have to kind of compromise on the growth. Now, this is on the inside of a curve, and I would normally get rid of it, but because we need something desperately on this side of the tree, I'm going to leave it. That doesn't need to be that long. That doesn't need to be that long.
All forests have very long, very trunks at the bottom.
Say that again?
All forests have, instead of like a third, have bare trunk.
They could.
Then
They can, absolutely. That's true too. The third is not always true. It's not always true. Again, just like if we came in here and you learned classical music and I said, hey, this is how you do classical music. This is how you do it. Okay, you're always going to follow the progression like this. This is how we're going to do it. Well, that would be true in the concept of classical music. But in the grand scheme of music, you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter. And the same with the rule of threes. And like in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be like the end-all be-all of everything. But it is a good kind of guideline, because what I have seen is more often than not, most designs are some form of interpretation of those rules. So even bunjin is a great example of that, of this concept that I'm trying to describe. Is bunjin, who in here can name a few key traits about bunjin? What are some key traits? Skinny trunk, okay, boom, skinny trunk. Crazy movement, I like that. Plus, crazy movement. Right, so I'm going to get to my point in just a second. We're taking the roundabout way. All right, so when I do this crazy movement to the tree, and I get this nice trunk line, squeaky, squeaky. Now I come up to here. From here up, once I decide to make my foliage head, because on a bunjin, you work your foliage to the top third of the line, the last third of the line. Instead of it being a branch on the first third and work your way up, you don't start your branches till the final third. That's a bunjin. But guess what? You're going to leave this, this part is going to become a rule of threes tree. Right there. So this will be bare. You'll have your first, I'm going to switch out this marker because it's driving me crazy. You're going to have your first pad here, second pad there, back branch there, and then dense pad there. And that's going to be your bunjin. So you're still extrapolating on the rule of threes. I'll even do you one better. You guys are going to love this. You really will. This is worth the price of admission right here. Okay. So cascade, right? Cascade bonsai. How do you make a cascade bonsai? Rule of threes, tree, flipped over the pot. So instead of right, left, and back, we're not going to have any branches for the first third. So we're breaking it into thirds. No branches, first third. Then we're going to have right, left, front. Nothing to the back. nothing towards the pot. Right, left, front. And then at the very top of the tree, a dense canopy. So it's that rule of threes flipped over the side. Now I'll do you a second one better. There's another type of cascade where you build a top tree to this. Okay, guess what that top tree is built like? A rule of threes tree. Right, so you're going boop, 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 and boop. Yeah.
You said front rather than back. What's the difference?
Towards the pot. You don't grow branches towards, like if it's hanging it down and it's coming, yeah, you don't go towards the pot typically. You'll go to the sides and to the front.
You go away from it.
Right, right. So think of it as just that rule of threes tree flipped right over the side, just like that. And so that rule of threes theory, again, like I was saying, my whole long-winded point is that it's not the end-all be-all, but you'd be shocked at how often it shows up in design. Even in people that are like, I don't use that, you kind of do. Like it's hidden away in there a lot of times. So that's kind of what I know. Was that helpful for cascade design? All right, I do like this deadwood in here. That's pretty cool. But this branch is very weak and very long. All right, let me think this through. Do I even need him? No. I don't think we need this guy too long to the back either. I don't think I need him that long to the back. And I think that's a cool tree, actually. I'm liking this. I thought I was going to not like this tree when I started working on it, and I'm slowly falling in love. It's really the fact that they're all going in that same direction is really fun. Now, do I need that at all? I don't. And I don't even need that. Let me get rid of that right there. There we go. That's better. Okay. Now this. Okay.
Their trunks fuse easily.
No, they don't fuse that I know of. I might be totally wrong, but I have not noticed junipers to be fusers.
I was looking at this one and it looks like.
No, I don't think they fuse. But again, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Okay, so I do want that over like that. So now let me just grab a little bit of a guy wire material. It was Richard's. Yeah, I think he said it was a Cedar Elm.
Yeah.
Good.
That's,
I'm happy to hear that.
This dude knows his stuff.
I've been around the block a few times.
Yeah.
I've worked on a few trees here and there.
Really simplify it and stuff, so it makes it easy to understand.
The thing about it at the basket, you have to have a little bit of an artistic eye to make it.
No, it's farmer's work.
It's farmer's work. No,
Farmer's work.
yeah.
If you follow the formula and you can put a little art on it, but
Otherwise,
It's more math than anything.
yeah.
It really is, yeah.
well, besides it, I learned the three part. I'm
Yeah.
not going to wait until I learn the rest.
It's
Because otherwise, you're not having an artistic tree, then you're going to have an ugly tree.
It's true, but think most of the time, like one of the ways that we build trees is not even with wire. We'll just build with pruning. And if I had 20 minutes to explain to you, I would show you that it's all math.
Oh, well, that
Yeah.
would be easier for me.
It's a lot easier. So we've done. I'll try my best to maybe dive into that. I can show you maybe.
The one thing is besides the tree,
Yeah.
is how to look at the different trunks as to what to decide
Yes.
to keep.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the thing. I don't.
Absolutely. And that does take a little bit of time, but it's just like anything else. Is the more you practice it, the better you get at it, and you eventually feel more comfortable at it. At first, it's like, oh, what do? I don't want to mess it up. But eventually you say, it'll grow back. No, I'm
I
kidding.
don't know. This is my third time here. I got a Corton Astra,
Yeah.
and Kevin helped me cut it. There were three branches to it. I put it in the patio. It rained for 3 days. Now 2 of them are.
Well,
one of them is the
but that happens. I killed a lot of my first trees, and so it's okay. It happens. It happens. It's tricky. No problem.
Quick question, have you ever done bonsai with chili pepper plants?
With what are they?
Chili pepper.
No, I haven't. You probably can if they can get a woody trunk and if they're perennial. They got to be perennial.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they are. Like,
They are, and there's a whole group they call it bonsai.
oh, that's cool. Yeah, and they do chili peppers?
Yes.
That's sweet.
Yeah, because I got one and I want to try it out.
Yeah, try it. That's cool.
So Mike, are you going to take this branch off, or?
No, I know that whenever, that's a great question. I'll answer that to the whole community. Ask that again once everybody's settled down. Oh. Yeah, I have. I'm going to be sleepy tonight. But for now, we keep going.
You know, up close, a little more challenging. When I stood back there, this is a magnificent shape.
Yeah, it's
From a distance, this is really a very cool.
it needs more love. It needs more time and love. Yeah, oh yeah.
When you're done, I have a bougainvillea question for you.
Okay. All right. Did everybody enjoy their break? Okay. Well, we're back. I'm back to this tree. What I did to this tree is I basically guy wired one of these down just so it's a little lower and more in line with the rest. And I like the general kind of line of the tree. Now, if we have time, I'll wire it out as well. But I want to make sure I also get this fleshed out a little more. So I'm kind of jumping back and forth, back and forth. Oh, right. Great question, Richard. This trunk back here, no, I wouldn't take it off. What I would do is wait until repotting time, tolerate it until you can get to repotting time, and then repot this one separate. Or you can incorporate it into the tree. You can pot it closer. But it's 2 trees. It would be a waste of a tree to just cut it off. So we don't want to just cut it off. We want to definitely repot it somewhere in the design or as its own tree. So good question. Thank you. Thank you.
We're out of here in 5 minutes. We are out of here, going outside.
For real?
For real.
Okay.
We have witnessed a miracle. Bonsai artists working on 3 trees at one time.
Woo!
All right, and then we're going to be doing the raffle at the same time at 7:30. We do the raffle.
Outside?
We'll do it here.
What the heck?
This in your sleep.
Yes.
For somebody like me, I'm just starting out. It's just beautiful.
It seems very daunting when you're
Yes.
starting out, but
Yes.
it's honestly, it takes about a couple years to really get comfortable. Like you'll start having fun in a couple months, but a couple years and then you can start really working without instruction. It takes about a couple years to feel confident. And then that's when
3 years ago, Kevin and all of the group came to my house, and I had some shrubs that are 50 years old. Grace, what were those little things in my front yard? What were those things that Kevin and them took?
Oh, boxwoods or something? Oh, Yopon holly, yeah.
And so the club kept cutting them and fixing them, and I'm like, I can't cut it. It's done such growth. So they came and brought me one to my house. So I'm.
That's so cool.
This. And I don't know what I have growing in this new house, but I told Kevin he's got to come and see what
Yeah.
my husband wants out.
Yeah, that's fun.
But to me, after after it's grown so well, how can I cut it?
Think of it, well, so a big part of bonsai is it's a discipline as well that looks to explore wabi-sabi. Has anybody talked to you about wabi-sabi?
No.
So wabi-sabi is the Japanese philosophy of finding beauty in life's three eyes, that everything is impermanent, imperfect, and incomplete. So bonsai is a great method for learning and training your brain. You are going to lose some of, you're going to grow it to where it's beautiful and then have to cut it all up. And then get it beautiful and then cut it all up. But it's the same thing as like when you wash your car, it gets dirty. When you wear your laundry, it gets dirty. You know, nothing lasts forever, and we have to continually kind of do the work.
I mean, this has turned out gorgeous.
Thank you.
And I want to know why you picked the small one and not the big one.
Down
on the end.
Oh, why I picked the small one too? Because more of those trunks were in a line, and if it's like you can use more, the size means nothing. So think it's going to be the character, the design, like the actual composition cues. So what I could have done with one single trunk, yes, it would have been a great like learning tool for like a beginner and whatnot, but as an actual composition, it would have ended up just being another boring upright. Whereas we had the opportunity to make something that is a little more avant-garde, you know. Hey.
But it's a start. Yeah.
Yes.
Ah.
Last 2 days. No problem.
Ah. Very nice. Very good. So junipers are a lot of wiring, that's true. There's not a lot of ways to clip and grow a juniper, that's unfortunate, but they are the instant gratification tree. So the tree that if you spend the time to sit and wire it all day, you can go from like a before and after that is mind-blowing. And whereas like a lot of our deciduous, our broadleaf trees we're not able to really do that. So can that come out and down? So now you guys can kind of see I got a good pad here going on this side. So got a good pad on that section. Put my glasses back down. Now we are missing some 1.5. We don't have 1.5er. It's like reverse Richard's house. Richard didn't have 2.
I know what you're going to go for. I don't know. There's some good choices. That's all mine. That's mine. This is Kevin.
This, Ryan kept it. This is one, the bonsai clump, one.
There.
This one was plotted in 21 days.
Oops. Oh, went up a little bit. There we go. That's the other thing about copper is it really sets the shape when you have it. Okay, for now, let me go a little heavier up here.
You were talking about maybe shortening it. Are you still thinking that?
No, I like it. I like it tall now. I was thinking different earlier. I was trying to think of how I was going to make it denser, but it's just there's not enough. This would go in the opposite direction. It wouldn't work out well. So I like the height until we get more density, and then I might lower it a little bit. Oh, what the hell was that? Scared the shit out of me.
What number of wires do they have?
I think like 3.5 or something. Look at that, left-handed wiring as well. I'm wiring left-handed right now. I'm a right-handed guy.
So how do you normally take them back off?
The wire?
Yes.
You clip them off, like you have a wire cutter that you can clip them off.
Damaging the tree.
Right. Yeah, so you're just like going snip, 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 and it comes right off, falls away.
Copper wire, everything insulated?
No, everything non-insulated, so you want it without the coating. But I like the copper because it's for conifers only.
Wire here, right?
No, this is aluminum. It's no coating on it. It's just anodized. No. Well, yes. They'll both stay on the same amount of time and bite in at the same rate, but the copper will protect better for that length of time. Any questions so far? Anything I can answer for anybody? Doesn't have to be bonsai related. It can be favorite movie, politics. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Somebody was telling me about tree shaping and that you want it to look like it's bowing towards you if it's going to curve. And I was kind of like, oh.
Not even if it just has a curve. It's the front of all bonsai should be leaning slightly towards the observer. So like all trees, like I don't have any finished ones here, but if you saw any of my trees that I pot, I always pot them to where there's a slight lean to the tree and the first two branches come slightly at the observer. So think of the body language like this. Imagine if I said, hey, welcome to class, right? I'm leaned in, I'm welcoming you, arms outstretched, versus, hey, welcome to class. So it's a psychological thing for welcoming the viewer to the front. So it doesn't have to be like, but it has to be somewhat angled towards the observer, the whole tree.
But a sideways bend is okay, just different.
Oh, any of the bends are okay. Any of the bends are okay. You just don't want the tree leaning. It can bend all it wants, but the general movement of the tree can't be leaning away from the observer. So like if I've selected this as my front, I wouldn't pot it like that. You see what I mean? I would only pot it where it like leans slightly towards you. Yep.
So this tree,
Good question.
what do you see as the front of this?
It was the other side, this side, so far. So
informal upright.
in there, it would be informal forest. Informal forest. So each one of those are informal.
This is going to make this tree.
I know, it's cool.
I mean, that is actually going to really pop.
I know, I think that's a cool, I really like that. That's really neat. Yeah, it's a cool little piece. It's cooler than I thought it was. Okay, let me see that. That's good. Where was I going? I was going up here. Let me actually go around.
That's interesting. You went over the top. You always go over the top.
No, sometimes you come from the bottom. It depends if you're... Yeah, it just depends. It depends if you're trying to raise or lower, or if it even matters, if that's even... Like, I'm not...
If you're trying
This...
to lower, you go over the top.
Right. But this isn't gonna... This wire's so thin, it doesn't matter. It's a number 2. It's not gonna be thick enough to move this up or down. So, it's mostly I'm trying to get the ends of the branch. Oh, shit. Sorry. I'm skittish.
I didn't do anything.
All right.
So that's
Yeah.
a trunk. You're making that a trunk.
Yeah, exactly.
You're trying to bring it in to create the shape of the silhouette.
Yeah, I want to make the silhouette, but I need to use these as like these are my trunks.
So that's like a trunk and a...
Right. Right, so we'll try and do that.
Yeah. Branch is branch unless it's a trunk.
Like, this is gonna sound really dumb, but I have a hard time telling you.
That's, of course, that's supposed to, it's not dumb. It's that it grays out. The deadwood ends up becoming the same color as the live wood. That's one of the reasons we lime sulfur and also polish the vein of the trunk. So we want to get it as red as possible, and then lime sulfur the deadwood to get that as white as possible. So a lot of people say, well, that's not natural, but it's not about being natural. It's about the artistry of being able to pick up what is alive and dead, you know.
Well, I've got a buttonwood that I know has dead on it. It's gonna be fabulous.
I have another question.
Yeah, sure.
When you're wiring and you are in love with a branch and then you break it.
You can't. Bonsai has roots in Zen Buddhism, right? And Zen Buddhism has a lot of teachings that stress that you should not or be very careful about what you get attached to, because it's all impermanent. The whole tree is going to die, whether it dies in your lifetime or not, we don't know. But that whole idea of like you are going to lose branches and you are going to like crack them and you are going to break them, and it does hurt. There's going to be hurricanes. In our instance, in Florida, there's going to be things that you don't expect. Life comes your way. Sometimes hail. Sometimes you have to sell a tree because you need money. I mean, it's like so many. I'm not kidding. There's so many things that will come between you that you can't let little things like branches like affect you. It's like too small of a thing, you know, in the grand scheme of it.
Yeah, totally.
So it does hurt at first, but I'm telling you, the sooner you can like let go and be less attached, the less heartache you'll have. Yeah.
And that's why you don't give
A lot of times,
Never give them names. Never give them names. Unless it's like a really cool name like Sleeping Dragon or something. But don't be like, hey, this is Barry. You know?
and a lot of times, if a branch breaks, a bud will form, like at the base.
Yeah.
And then you get another one.
Yep. It's serendipity.
Yeah.
It's kismet. Oh, did I leave my bag? No, I got my bag.
Well, we have some miscellaneous bags
Is there anything cool in them? It depends what's in them, whether I will claim that it's mine. All right, let's bring this in too. I got to get this down. All right, we're making progress here. You can't have my pad.
See, this is what we were missing. When your back was to us, we couldn't see you do all of this.
Oh, really? I'm sorry. I tried to shrink down and get low, but I know. It's hard to know where I should stand.
Ready to make a choice?
Okay. Yeah, this whole thing needs to come in. But how? How do we bring it in? It's not enough. Can I bring that down a little bit? Yeah.
Well, you get the last
There we go. Let's see. I'm not hating it. All right, a couple more wires. Any other questions? Anybody have any Juniper questions? Juniper questions going once. Juniper questions going twice. So, no more Juniper questions. Yeah. Speak to the man in the crowd.
I've learned that I'm just trying to keep my development as it grows.
I literally almost wired a dead branch. That's when you know it's getting late. I almost wired a dead branch. All right, 2 more branches, I think. 2 more.
I do have a question about your stylus.
Yeah.
Like, how did you decide to do a big tree versus like maybe try to bring it down and make a smaller tree?
Too hard to compact the design. Like it's not easy. We don't.
Not like to look nice today, but like.
Oh.
Down the road.
Well, I think that this will open up things. I mean, the reality is, like, I don't think until like this becomes much bigger and until some of this stuff further in the design gets much bigger, I don't think you'll really have the option to go a small tree. Like, I don't think it's just, even in the foreseeable future, like, I don't think in the next 5 years you could make the decision to go much smaller. It's also very much like a straight Like look at the taper ratio that you have on the tree. Your taper ratio from here to here, your tachiagari, your first third, for instance, is like a 12 to 1, maybe even 20 to 1. Might even be 20 to 1. And so you can't, like, unless I really grew something super low, I can't change that taper ratio. So me trying to fight it and making it a smaller tree, it's still going to be long and elegant and lanky. You see what I mean? Is it's going to have that set taper ratio of 20 to 1 because the tachiagari is set that way, like the first third.
20 and what's the 1?
Oh, great question. So however thick the trunk is, your taper ratio is however thick your trunk is, you go like a common one is 6 times in height. Most shohin are 6 to 1, meaning that if it's a 2-inch wide trunk, you're going to go 6 times that in height. Does that make sense? So, so usually it's like a 1-inch and then you go 6 inches tall. So commonly though, in like the 80s or in other trees, different stylings, you can go 12 to 1, 20 to 1. Some are sumo style that are 2 to 1. So, but there is something that took me a long time to understand. I was talking to Richard about this, is your first third of your tree and the way you kind of started pruning it sets your taper ratio in a large part forever. Sets your, like your you can always chop it on a tropical and start over, but for the most part, especially a conifer, you're not really able to change this into a 6 to 1 easily. You know, I don't even have any growth in here to cut back to make it into a 6 to 1. So it's just better to just go with what it has and go into a tall tree and work with that taller taper ratio. Because think, you guys don't have slash pines here, do you?
They'll grow, but they're not here.
So slash pines are, when you first get into bonsai, you're obsessed with taper, and you want that sharp, powerful taper. But the reality is a lot of trees taper terribly. They do taper, but like if you look at slash pines in Florida, you'll see that they're like telephone poles until the very top, and that's like a 20 to 1 taper ratio.
All right,
Yeah.
so we have to be out of here in 4 minutes into the parking lot. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. I'm just wrapping
All
up.
right, so we'll start gathering things and finding someplace to set a tree outside to work on.
Well,
Oh, it's all good. I'm all set.
you want to do the
Raffle?
The
It's already been
picking?
done.
No, but
You
like
all-
No, the picking of the trees.
Oh,
Yeah, let them pick their trees and then he'll pretty much be ready.
oh, okay.
So I was going to say, so if you
Well, we'll have that work on a couple
Right,
minutes.
right,
We'll-
right. Yeah, outside.
So you're
We'll
gonna
start.
No, he's starting.
You have number 1.
He talks and shows us. He's number 1.
He's number 1.
I don't like this stuff. I mean, I like it. I mean, it's not as, I don't actually.
This one has.
No, it's referring to your sense.
Okay, I can have it.
It's just really your preference. This one has all this wood and stuff. So that's gonna be really nice.
Well, yeah, because I get whatever you don't take. I get whatever you don't take. And it doesn't matter to me. No, you pick what you want.
Do you like bigger trees or all that?
You want the best tree exposition. Well, then
She's gonna husband a carrier.
No, not the person bought it, he helped them carry it, put it in the show. It's really, it is interesting. It's rather huge, like riding away. Enjoy it.
All right. Shoot.
That one?
No, she's taking
This one. Okay. Then that one's yours.
no pressure. Sometimes I don't know what to do, so I say, fine, do it. I'm too insecure.
And I'm cutting the pad off.
It's really interesting because
bonsai store.
Yeah, like southwest side of town.
I need to go visit his.
We don't have wire yet, but we have wire. You get we got Juniper and you get a
Yeah.
I don't think it's
What's
a
that?
live oak. It looks more like a.
I don't know.
It looks like a Monterey.
Yeah, it's some kind of oak.
Monterey, yeah.
By the way, I really like watching your film, but I just love calling me a stalker to see Amelia.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. She's the light of my life.
I'm just like, please,
Oh.
just keep filming more.
I try. I try to.
Front yard.
Thank you for saying
In about 20
that.
years, it's going to be a Juniper.
Thank you for saying that. That means a lot.
You're not gonna mess with that one, right?
I don't think I'm gonna have time. I mean, how long are we gonna be here?
I don't know. I would just.
Should I? I don't know.
Did you win this tree?
No. We're just talking.
I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to if that's what's expected of me. I don't know. What
I don't
time?
know.
What time are we?
I'm not a board member anymore.
What the hell, Ricky? You're supposed to be covering my back. You're supposed to be. You're supposed to be my man on the inside. My man on the inside, I tell you. Ah.
We were just asked to get out of here.
They said, "Hey, you don't got to go home, but you can't stay here."
No.
All right.
So Mike, I know you're finishing that up. Since I have to run out of here, I wanted to ask you about my bougainvillea.
Okay.
So I had this little bougainvillea I got for $12. So it wasn't a big investment. It was. Let's see. It was. I guess I'll find a picture of it. It had a really great trunk to it.
Thank you.
There are the roots. We cut the roots and we cut the trunk.
Yeah.
And I got nervous. Do you think this will come back? It's just.
Yeah, of course it will. Well, I shouldn't say of course it will. It should. Bogies are tough.
Are they? And we cut half the roots and we cut off the.
It doesn't matter. Should be okay.
Root stimulator and a little.
I think it should be okay.
Yeah.
They're tough.
I don't know. I like you, Mike. Optimistic guy.
I think Ryan. Oh, well, that would explain this because he's got 100 of these in his backyard.
Yeah,
I
the
have,
squirrels helping with it. So.
Yeah, I have one of his.
Go, Mike. So we'll probably see you Saturday.
Yeah, that would be
I don't
awesome.
know if I have anything in the workshop, but I'll probably come for lunch.
Remember seeing
That would be fun.
Yeah.
I would appreciate that. That would be
I
cool.
don't have that many bonsais. Not like Richard or Scott.
Yeah, Richard's got a lot.
in my backyard. You know,
He's got a nursery.
grew by the house 10, 15 years.
He's gonna be able to open his own bonsai museum.
I told him that.
Yeah,
He needs to document his stuff.
he does.
He's got a pretty good.
Whenever you're ready, Mike, I'm the Sherpa that gets to take this.
All right, no worries, no worries. So that's kind of the end, everybody. Doo-doo. Okay, there's nobody left. Oh, all right. No worries. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Gabe still